Yeah, he was really going after it. Of course, when you video it, he's going to stop. That just seems to be what they do. But I was just watching that. I don't know if they just had a bit of a row, but that 6-line wrasse or Hexatania, pajama wrasse, whatever you want to call it, that was just attacking the hell out of this poor Rain 40.
Well, he did come up on it quite fast last night when I was watching them and scared the rangefoot away. But he only did that once.
Yeah, what I just saw then was quite aggressive behaviour.
Okay.
So you just got to be aware that if that guy is being very aggressive to that guy, then what happens is this guy, the Rainfords, is likely to have a real immune issue, because when a fish stresses, all of their energy goes into their fight or flight system, their respiration system, and then their immune system temporarily collapses. And after a collapse, it can take like literally weeks for that immune system to actually come back again and for the energy within the fish to go back to equilibrium. So if you're saying that that was a rare occurrence, then maybe we're okay. But I just want you to be aware that if you see that really aggressive behaviour, which I saw right before I turned the camera on, because obviously I turned the camera on and now he's running around like he's very well behaved. He's like, yeah, I'm fine, just leave me alone. But when I didn't have the camera on, he really had a go at that guy. And then when a fish has a go at another fish, and then you see it like fretting, see, he's breathing quite heavily, and he's actually sitting there quite stressed because obviously he just got attacked. So just be aware, just keep an eye on him, because if that aggressive behaviour continues, and I'm not saying it will, but it doesn't tend to end well for him, because and he's quite skinny too. But I will say they are fairly hard fish to keep. So now, are the boys giving you copepods?
I haven't had the tank dose for a while.
Because this guy here is really going to like the copepods.
Yes, he's been eating them off the back wall and I think filtering the sand for them.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask you to try and continue copepod adding.
Okay.
And now at night time, if you turn this tank on when the lights are off, do you see copepods everywhere?
No, I think maybe I saw some on the glass last night, but then I cleaned them off this morning when I cleaned the glass.
Okay, that's okay. As long as there's copepods in there, then I'm happy. But I just want to
we could give it another dose.
just say that with fish like mandarins and rainfords and any of these sorts of fish, you really want to have plenty of copepods, because that's really the thing that's going to sustain them. The fish food's not going to sustain them. And he's just looking a little bit skinny. So he's either looking a bit skinny because there's no longer enough copepods, or he's actually quite stressed and he's not feeding properly because of this this pajama, assuming that. But now you know to look out for it. If this pajama keeps picking on him, then just be aware.
Do we have any chances of getting the pajama rest out of the tank? But mixed it up?
Okay, besides pulling the whole reef out, no way. So the pajama wrasse is one of the smartest, fastest and most beautiful fish. Now on this camera, everything looks blue and the pajama wrasse looks crap. But in real life, this is a really, really beautiful fish, and they're actually a real favourite of mine. So if I had a choice between keeping the rainfords, which is hard to keep, and keeping the pajama, I'd tend to go with the pajama because I personally like them. The other thing about the pajama too is the pajama is very good for eating pests, because you'll often get bristleworms and various things that the pajama loves to scavenge on. So as a reef fish, besides the fact they can actually be a bit aggressive, I'm getting some good shots of him right now. They're really a beautiful fish. They're a fish, a fish that in my heart, I really just personally like them. So I would hesitate to get rid of your pajama. And even if that meant you're sacrificing the rainfords, I would tend to prefer the rainfords.
Would there be any chance of getting rainfords out?
Well, yeah, but then what are we going to do with him, I guess?
Would you take him back?
Well, I'm not going back today. But I mean, that's a conversation that we could have for the future.
So, originally, I'll be honest with you, originally I didn't want the 6-line rash, but I went with the Rainsford because I thought it looked like a rash, but it was going to be a lot quieter in the tank.
Yeah, sure.
But I ended up going the 6-line rash, so I took him.
Yeah, I love the 6-line. I just think
they're lovely fish.
I reckon they're a start. I prefer the 6-line to the Rainfords any day. I mean, hopefully that aggressive behaviour I saw was not common. Because now that you know to look out for it, you can make a decision later. And in the future, getting the Rainfords out is going to be much easier than getting out the 6-line. Because I find 6-line are very fast, very alert, and very smart. Whereas I find the Rainford is definitely easier to get out than 6-line are super hard.
Probably send a trap for the Rainsford?
Well, yeah, I mean,
I
I would be more confident getting out the Rainfords than I am the 6-line.
Yeah.
I mean, this dude's... They'll find a little house that you can't even find them as soon as you...
I can tell you, he was sleeping in the back part of the rock, but now he's sleeping up in under here.
Anyway, I think they're fabulous fish.
And his fish is nice up there now.
In a reef tank, sometimes you'll get these macro algae, and they look pretty cool, but they don't tend to be a permanent fixture. So enjoy it. Make sure it doesn't choke your coral. So maybe just we can pull a little bit off around the coral. But what typically tends to happen is it just grows really well, and then suddenly dies off. One of the reasons it may die off is running out of like elements such as iron. So if you did iron and manganese dose, you might find that this actually grows better. But at the same time, iron and manganese growth may also help your algae grow. So that's a bit of a catch-22. So enjoy it, and don't be too surprised if it doesn't last forever. Something that never hurts every now and then is send off a Triton ICP test. Just get a little bit of a snapshot of what's going on with the water. And then if suddenly you do find it dies off, you can use that as a comparison to make some sort of assumption of why it's died off. But my experience with this stuff is it doesn't tend to be a permanent fixture. It just looks really cool, and it either grows really much and then runs out of whatever it needs, and then you also tend to be pulling a fair bit of it out, because if it's doing well, it tends to do very well, and you don't want it taking over, so don't be afraid to pull some of it out. Now you hear people talking about wet skimming and dry skimming. This is what we call flood skimming. So this skimmer here is doing absolutely nothing because it is set way too high. See, it is bubbling away like crazy, and it's being flooded. And the whole thing's full of water, and the water's all dripping back into the sump. So what we actually want to do is we want to turn the air down, and we want to open the outlet. Now the outlet right now is fully closed, so that would explain it. So see, that was out. So if I just put that in, and then I turn this, I'm going to turn this magical button here, and then what I'm wanting is for it to open up. So I want that, oh, it's going down. So what I actually want to do is empty this cup. Actually, I'll be back in a second. The cup's empty. So what we really want with this skimmer is we really want the froth to be in the middle of the neck. If the froth is white, we want it to stay in the neck. If the froth is changing colour, we want it to come out of the neck. Now, if I close this gate off a little bit, if I make that close, I'm going to watch the bubbles come up, because we're restricting the water going out. If I open that up, I'm going to watch it go down. So I'm going to close it off a bit, then I'm going to wait. Now, setting a skimmer in one sitting is sort of a waste of time because it needs to settle. So what I'd recommend doing is closing it a bit, then waiting for an hour or two and checking it. Closing it a bit, waiting for an hour or two and checking it. So let me just close it a bit more now. Okay, so I just closed it a bit, and hopefully it'll come up a bit, and wait. If you go jigga 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 jig, good luck. That may or may not work. I prefer to be patient and slowly get it right, otherwise it's frustrating. So what's going to happen now is once the coloured stuff starts to form, that's called absorbate. And that's all the nutrients from the water that the oxygen's picking up. We want to close it a bit so the coloured stuff comes out. Now, if it's quite dark when it comes out, then we call that dry skimming. If it's quite light when it comes out, that's called wet skimming. Because if you wet skim, you'll get heaps of absorbate and it'll be lighter in colour. If you dry skim, you won't get much absorbate and it'll be very dark in colour. And there's different reasons why you might want to wet skim or dry skim. In a tank like this, it's relatively well populated with a relatively high amount of corals. I would probably go for a more wet skim. I'd want the coloured stuff coming out. But what I want to make you aware of is that within days, fatty acids and bacteria is going to form on the inside of this. So what is your best friend is just to get a little bottle brush or cleaner and just give that a bit of a clean on the inside every couple of days. You do not have to clean what's out. When it's out, it's out. You have to clean the neck because the neck stops more coming out. So you can let this build up and then you can take the cap off. But you don't wait for that to clean this or it'll stop working. So I'd like you to have a bottle brush or something and just wiping the inside of this every 2 days. It takes literally 2 seconds and then it means your skimmer will work very efficiently. So in the time that I've sat here, which is a few minutes, you can already see that this is starting to come up on its own. And I haven't touched it since it was down there. So that's why I say adjust it a bit, wait for an hour or two, adjust it a bit, wait for an hour or two. Because if you go and get it right and it creeps up on its own, which is pretty normal, then you've not set it right. So the best way to set a skimmer is run it a bit low, adjust it a bit, wait an hour or two, let it do its thing, and so forth. You've got to be patient. This tends to happen. You get these bloody, ow, that hurts. Oh, ow. Damn fish. You put your, ow, you're missing the, it hurts more than you think. You angry bloody bitch. Ow, it's fully just grabbing me and biting me. It actually hurts more than you think. Ow, piss off. Psycho bloody clownfish. Look at that. The easiest and most popular corals are Zonanthus. So we've just put that one in and we're hoping it'll grow up onto that back wall. There's one here and there is some frags there. Now they're very beautiful and very easy to keep coral, but you have to be aware that some species of Zo can actually be poisonous. And the other thing is that Zos look very similar to Pallies. So Palithoa can actually be poisonous. Now when I mean poisonous, I mean, let's imagine that it's growing all over the back wall and then you do your water change, so you pull the water right down and then they can actually release poisonous aerosols. Now if it is a super hot day and you had a really hot light, which this is an LED by the way, so it's not that hot, but let's imagine you had a metal halide light and it was a really hot day and the Zoa or Palithoa were out of the water, it is possible they can release an aerosol. Now in a situation like this, your risk is 0. But if you had a whole lot of Pallies, which in this case we don't actually have any, but let's say we did, and let's say that the water was pulled down, and then let's say you got distracted, somebody came over, or you had to go and do a big poo, or something happened and your Pallies were left out of the water for a long time, and then you went and stuck your head over the tank and you got a big breath of the aerosols from the Palithoa, it is possible that you can get sick. You can also get struck by lightning, so it's sort of similar, but anyway, just so you know. You've got an aquarium like this, when we do our normal tests, we can get a very good idea of what's going to make or break our tank. But if we want to get past the whole concept of survive and we want to get into the realm of thrive, then we want to start getting interested in the finer detail. So your trace and minor elements can also be tested by sending off an ICP test. So what I'd recommend doing is every now and then sending off an ICP test. In this case, I definitely want to send one off because we'll just get a bit of a base of where this of what's going on with the macro. But an ICP test will test like something like 40 different micro and trace tests, and these are laboratory tests that are not available to just test yourself. So every now and then, even if it's every few months or even once or twice a year, I would recommend sending off a Triton ICP test, and then you get the results, and then you use those results as a base. And if your aquarium is doing really well and it continues to go really well, then all good. But then over a period of time, if you find that a particular coral's not doing well, like for example, if this Goniopora is never opening up, then we might find in the ICP test that there is something that we could improve. For example, these Gonioporas tend to like a little bit of an elevated iodine level, and things like that will show up in the ICP test. So next time we come, we'll bring an ICP test. We then have to send it away and it goes off to the lab. Then we get the printout online, and that's going to give us something to review. And in the long run, it really helps us to manage what we don't know that we don't know. So for a relatively low cost, it gives us a much better understanding of what's going on in our tank, and well worth it. Irregular ICP test is something I highly recommend. It gets us to fine tune. Now here's a couple of very good products that we're going to start adding to this tank. Now this tank is actually doing quite well, but over a long period of time we do want to start looking about the micro and minor elements. So we're going to start using these two products, and what I'm going to recommend we do is take an ICP test of the aquarium, and then according to the results of the ICP test, we may then start to play with what of the minor and trace elements we're adding in order to get the best results, because we really want to trust the tests, especially with your minor and trace things. They really don't show up as a problem anytime soon, but over a long period of time they really do make a difference. Now this is a planktonic bacterial strains, which are very good for a reef tank. It's really good to keep this in the fridge once you open it. When you're servicing your aquarium, sometimes it's good to do this. This is called bubble blasting, and what you do is blast your tank with lots of little micro bubbles, and then the corals aren't too fond of it, but what it does is it gets bubbles all through the back of the reef, and a lot of your nutrients will actually bond with the oxygen like this piece here and come up out of the reef. So other people call it micro bubble scrubbing, and it goes and scoops up organics in the back of the tank. So if you just leave the tank like this for a minute or so and just fill it up with micro bubbles, it's actually a really good thing to do for your tank every now and then. Even if you just do it once a service, just for a little bit. I really like this tank. There's just a lot to look at. It's a very busy little happening.
I'm hoping to fit a few more bits in, but I don't know that I'll fit too much more.
Yeah, it's pretty up there.
It's getting pretty full, isn't it?
Yeah. So the thing you need to know is the more stuff you put in there, the more challenging it is to look after.
Okay.
Because if you start overpopulating it, you can do that if you want. Just know that everything isn't going to be stable.
It creates its own problem.
Okay, so now let's maybe add these. The Zola is so nice.
Yes, oh yeah.
It's funny how you add a little plug and it just looks shit. And then once it settles and it starts to grow and it just looks, and then suddenly, fuck off, you clownfish. Biting the shit out of me, fuck off.
Yes, she does that.
It's very aggressive.
Yes, it's like that.
Yeah.
It's like we're doing
Biting. The risk, it actually hurts.